Let's take a look at the communication setup screen. So starting from the top, here we can specify what we'd like every time a new record is created to appear as the default name for Custom 1, Custom 2 and Custom 3 field labels. Every module in the system usually has a Custom 1, 2 and 3 fields that you configure here in Setup. The next section shows you the sign-off default settings. So for example, when we're creating an email in the communications module, to default to regards name of person, or when a fax, regards or best regards, whatever you like, you can put in there. And the same with letter, yours faithfully, yours sincerely, and so on, you can put in there. The next setting, when creating emails throughout the system, you can specify that you either want to use the communications module within this system, or else use the default email application on your computer, like Mail or Outlook. So for difference is that if you're creating using the communications module, then the email record gets created in JobPro. From there you'll edit or enter in the body of the email and then click on send from there. Now the next option is where if you'd like to send emails using your SMTP or your ISP, then you can do that from here. Instead of JobPro relying on sending out emails using your main email program. So if we turn that on here, this then gives you the ability to put in your outgoing SMTP server, port number, various security and encryption types, authentication, username and password if you're authenticating as well. There is another option here that if you're sending out emails using your SMTP server or your ISP, that you can also use a plugin that's built into JobPro. Now the difference is that the first option without the plugin is using FileMaker's built-in SMTP email option. Now FileMaker currently only has the ability to attach one document to any email. So that's a restriction that we're dealing with here by using a plugin. So if you like to attach more than one document to any email, then you can do that by selecting to use the plugin option here. And the difference is that when you send the email from the communications module, it just uses a different method of sending the email. The next option down here is for when printing letters and faxes throughout the system to use own letterhead. Now what that means is that this is a default, and if this was clicked here, every time we create an invoice or a quote or a purchase order, those transactions will default with a setting in those records as well to use own letterhead. Now what that means is that when you print or email that document or transaction, it doesn't include your company logo and address and subheading at the top of the letterhead, but it leaves it blank so that if you were printing using, for example, pre-printed stationery, then you can do so. The sections over the right on the communication setup screen include setting up email signatures. So for example, we can set up an email signature for each employee, and you can type in their signature in here so that when that employee sends an email from the system, it can use their signature. Also, electronic signatures or scan signatures you can create in here. So if you're doing a letter or a fax, for example, or sending a quote or a sales order or a PO, purchase order, that you'd like to include your own signature on, you can do that by setting up signatures for each employee here. So for example, for Joe Blogs, and then we can paste in an image, or you can select an image from a file by clicking on the link there. Also, we've got a phone and SMS option in setup. Here we can specify that if we want to use JobPro for creating or invoking phone calls, we can do it using a couple of different methods. One of them is to use the well-known Skype VoIP software. So you'd select Skype, and that means that in various places throughout the system where you see a phone number, so let's go back and look at contacts. And in here, if we've got a phone number, just put in anything, and we have the ability then that if we click on dial phone, it'll actually dial the call in Skype on your computer. So if we go back into setup, back into communications, we also have the option of using another well-known open source software called Asterisk, which works with Mac and Windows. And that's a more, if you want to call it, professional type, fully functional VoIP system that you can install on your own network. And usually what it means is that when you make a phone call, it starts ringing out on your proper handset on a desk as opposed to your computer. So also, when it creates or invokes a phone call, you can set the system to create a log of the phone call. That's useful, for example, if you want to enter in any notes to do with that log, or even just to know that you made a call to a person on any specific day or time. The next option is where you want the log to open on screen as the phone call is started. So that's easier for where you want to enter in the details for the conversation you're having with the person on the phone. The next option here is for SMS, or sending texts to users or contacts in the system. And there's two options here. One of them is Clickatel, where you can set up an account with the well-known Clickatel SMS system. And if you're using Clickatel, you'll need to set up your username and password in here. That you'll do on the Clickatel website, and you'll register your own account and put the details here. But you can also use Skype for sending SMS messages as well. If you're using Asterisk for making phone calls, you'll also need to set up some details in here, including the server IP address that's hosting the Asterisk VoIP software, the port number, and various other details. Please contact us if you need further information on this, because it usually requires a bit of help setting up the Asterisk phone system.